Welcome to Beyond Expectations, a podcast where we explore the ideas, people, and innovations shaping the government of tomorrow. No other public recognition exemplifies the best of government service like the Arthur Flemming Award. This podcast highlights recent Flemming Award recipients and the incredible work being done across government today. I am Wagish Bhartia, your host and Chief Growth Officer at REI Systems, a proud sponsor of the Flemming Awards.
Today, I'm joined by two extraordinary guests, Dr. Kathryn Newcomer, Director of the Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Public Administration at George Washington University, and a national thought leader in public sector performance and evaluation, as well as James-Christian Blockwood, President and CEO of the National Academy of Public Administration and a past Flemming Awardee himself. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much.
Kathy, to start us off, the Flemming Awards have honored federal employees since 1948. That's a long time. What makes this award stand out among the other recognitions in public service?
Thank you. Not only is it the oldest award given to federal public leaders from outside government, but it is named after an extraordinary man who served presidents from FDR to Clinton and who led a variety of public agencies in the federal government, as well as being a university president, and throughout his career exemplified fabulous values that we all aspire to in terms of his leadership, in terms of his empathy, in his concern that leaders in the public sector consider how the effects of agencies affect particularly those most marginalized and in need in our society. He was way ahead of his time in being concerned about inequities in society, ageism, as well as racism, and a variety of other issues. He was way ahead of his time, and it's just an honor to be able to remember him as we do through these awards.
That's great. And James-Christian, as both a past recipient and now as president and CEO of NAPA, tell us a little bit about this award and what it meant to you early in your career and how it manifested over time.
Yeah, well, let's think about what it means to be a public servant. And, people get into public service not necessarily for wealth creation or not necessarily for the fame or really for any recognition at all. The majority of people who do public service want to make a difference in their communities, want to make a difference for their country. So they're not looking for awards necessarily, or they're expecting that the work that they do would bring a spotlight on them or on their organization. And so to be considered for an award like the Arthur Flemming Awards is such a special recognition. It's taking a hardworking public servant who has their head down, doing their work in earnest, working on behalf of the American people and saying, wait a second, there is something special about what you're doing. And in particular, this is something that's very unique about the Arthur Flemming Award process, which is different from other awards, is it comes with the recognition from their agency head, endorsing that the work that they've done has had that kind of impact. And so this award that I remember when I received it, and I am sure that everyone who has received it since believes it's their agency head recognizing their work and saying, hey, great job on behalf of our organization. It's the commission full of expertise and has seen many accomplishments across the entire federal government saying the unique contributions you're making is very meaningful. We want to recognize that. And it's an opportunity for the recipient to say, I don't always do this. I try to just stay focused on the work, but I will take a step back and say the work I'm doing is meaningful. It's making a difference. And that too deserves some recognition. So I remember my time, and it meant a lot to be able to join and be recognized along with other award winners that many of them have huge accomplishments and have name recognition in and of themselves, but to also do that at a time when I don't think public servants are really looking for that as to be the outcome. It just happens to be a pleasant surprise along the way.
In terms of once you have won the award, and then after, any kind of key impacts on your career and how you approach your work, anything along those lines?
Yeah, well, I think it's one, just kind of reinforcing that you're doing a good job and that doing a good job pays off. I also think it's a confidence builder, right? If you're doing your work, you're doing it right, you're staying true to your values, you're working with integrity, you're working hard. This is encouragement to keep doing exactly that, because that's why you're getting recognized. And so it also, as you look at along your career, it's never a bad thing to have someone point out that you're doing things at an exceptional level, especially when you're comparing to your peers across government, which are all doing wonderful work. But to have a commission of experts look across government and say, you in particular, and keep in mind, this is typically about a dozen people every year, you in particular are making that much of a meaningful difference that it's noteworthy. That can be a confidence booster. That can also signal to other agencies, other supervisors that you deserve another look for a promotion or for more responsibility, or just to encourage you to continue doing what you're doing and put more opportunity in front of you to see what more can you do to innovate, what more can you do to deepen research, what more can you do to maybe amplify either a legal precedent or some other type of work that you might be working on. So I would say that the impact after receiving an award is threefold. It certainly can be a confidence booster. It can certainly be encouraging to continue to do the great work that public servants are doing. And it can be an enhancer for one's career, because it gives you a good spotlight and other people to say, yes, this is significant work and you should build on it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. The awards themselves honor both technical excellence from a public service perspective, as well as innovation in serving the public. Maybe talk a little bit about innovation in the context of public service. What does that really mean to each of you? Maybe Kathy, you can go first and offer your perspective.
When we are selecting the winners each year, where there's actually three layers of judging, but we all keep saying, but what did they do that goes beyond their job? This is to look not just to do a job well with excellence, but going that extra step. And that extra step may be coming up with very innovative, new ways of better serving the public, whether it's improving drinking water, improving the ability to deal with Alzheimer's, improving our space station operations. There's the winners are working with others cross agency, cross sector, and in ways to figure out how can we just do a better and different way of service. And so the innovation is sort of this looking beyond, not just staying doing things the way we always have, but better addressing emerging problems.
That's great. James-Christian, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's no doubt that there's innovation happening in government, and the Flemming Award winners is just one example that can show that. Some recent award winners have looked at air quality, especially after wildfires or other critical emissions, and how to improve that air quality to make sure it's healthier for people to consume. They've looked at food and the impact of processed food on diets and how to help that ensure that we're having healthy diets. Looked at issues of the heart and has done research on cardiovascular issues to make sure that there are better ways to address heart failure. So those are really big innovations that I think people don't always understand are happening in government. But there's also innovations on kind of the leadership and management side. I remember for the reasons that I won the Flemming Award was the creation of new capabilities in government. People don't always believe this. They think government is bureaucratic. They think it's very rigid. They think you can't be necessarily an entrepreneur, but there is an opportunity to be an entrepreneur. And there's lots of innovation that can happen and lots of breakthroughs. And I remember as I was awarded for creating new capabilities, this award encourages people to continue to take risks, to continue to push the envelope, and to innovate, and to think about how can you take even existing government capabilities and processes and improve upon them? How can you create brand new processes and innovations that don't yet exist that may provide a better service or a better benefit to the American public? So, I think when I think about innovation, the Arthur Flemming Awards really does a great job of demystifying and really kind of turning a myth on its head about innovation that can happen in government. Look at the award winners, look at the things that they're doing, both from a truly innovative and a technical expertise perspective, but also from a leadership and a management and creating new processes and procedures and opportunities and being somewhat of an entrepreneur in government.
I think that's really well said. I think the public, generally speaking, underappreciates the innovation that's occurring within government. If we think about the differences between in the private sector and in the government, what are the underlying causal factors that really either make it harder to appreciate that innovation or where it's really a different type of innovation? If you keep going on that topic, perhaps?
Yeah, well, first let's take a step back and look at incentive structures. I mean, the private sector generally is motivated by a profit and monetarily, and that's not every company or organization, but that's surely a lot of them. And in government, while we want things to be effective and efficient and a good use of taxpayer dollars, the motivation isn't necessarily money. It's a public good. It's doing a service. It's helping our government and our society and the American public be as best as it can be. And so I think the first part of the innovation and the difference between a private and public sector would be motivation. Another piece of that, though, is thinking about the limitations in terms of what's possible. And so in private sector, you can be innovative and do lots of things. And in government, there's also nothing that you can't accomplish. I mean, there is a world of opportunity. Every single thing you can think of happens in government. Every single job responsibility, every place across the world, government has a presence there. And so I think when I think of like innovation and limitations, it's less about limitations and it's more about looking at how there can be some partnership as well. So you've got private sector that may be motivated differently, maybe thinking about innovation in ways that the public might be more familiar with because they're able to share what those innovations are. The public probably feels and sees them and it's associated with those companies more. So let's say you have a giant tech company that brings the latest technology to you. Their brand is all over it. And they're saying, here's what we've done and we've delivered to you. When that happens in government and it happens daily, there's no brand associated. There's no major recognition or celebration that you have hardworking public servants that helped do that. And so I just think, the motivation is a little bit different. The incentive structure is different. And certainly the recognition is. But the one thing that's not different is that innovation is happening both in the private sector and the public sector.
Could I just add to what James-Christian was just saying is that one of our winners from, I think it was the 90s, is Bill Phillips, who subsequently got the Nobel Prize in physics. He's still at his job at NIST. And he said that he frequently gets asked, why are you still there? Why are you got a Nobel Prize? You could go make a ton of money in the private sector. Why are you staying at NIST? And he said, because, and it's very much in line with James-Christian was just saying, he said that the public service ethic, all of us are in this together. And he loves the culture and he feels like he is doing something important. Clearly it's not for the money, but he has gone on, as I said, he has continued to be a very active and prolific researcher and loves what he does. For example, a couple of the others were Tony Fauci, who stayed on for a very long career in government. Gene Todaro, who is finishing out his term at the Government Accountability Office, GAO. He was an early winner. And so we have a lot of predictive validity with these awards. The people that have won them have gone on to continue making wonderful contributions to society.
Yeah, I think you both touched on it. The Flemming Awards almost bring together that notion of motivation, incentive, and branding and attempt to sort of put that more in the public eye. So I think that's a wonderful an initiative. To that end, Dr. Arthur Flemming championed equity, public trust, which is absolutely critical, and cross interdisciplinary leadership. Can you speak a little bit, Kathy, to how today's awardees are carrying that legacy forward?
Absolutely. Each year, there are some amazing accomplishments. that definitely are addressing a variety of very wicked problems that persist in our society. So, for example, this year, one of the winners has worked on mitigating environmental harm caused by legal emissions in disadvantaged communities. Another is dealing with, for example, improving drinking water and waste disposal in Indian and Alaska Native nations, among other achievements. One of our winners this year is the second ever from the Indian Health Service. And she is, in fact, a Native American and has been very active in supporting health initiatives among Native American communities. Last year, one of our awardees was from the Customs and Border Patrol, which is, you might say, well, that's kind of an interesting place to have an award. She was also the first winner ever from the American Virgin Islands. And she has been a role model in the work that she has done there, and she's moved up in leadership there. So the people that are working in the public interest, whether it's the Justice Department, for example, we have another that is this year winner who's transforming how victims of terrorism are compensated. As I said, these are not easy problems to address. And yet these are people that are leading initiatives, many times cross-boundary, cross-agency, cross-sector, to get together to address these persisting, complicated problems.
That's great. James-Christian, just to dig in a little bit further, are there certain traits, attributes, or mindsets that today's public servants can draw from these prior awardees, in particular, that you would love to see sort of permeate and perpetuate to the sector?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are many traits. I'll name three of them. One is perseverance. Another is really looking at character, kind of when you think about leadership. And then another is looking at service and just being service oriented. These traits are common across a lot of the winners of the Arthur Flemming Awards. And think about the context we're in now. We are facing soon to be one of the longest shutdowns in our history. The value of public servants is not always recognized by some current government leaders, some of the public, and trust in institutions, and in particular our government, is at historic lows. So you need kind of public servants to be able to persevere through those types of conditions and still be able to deliver their work and their services for the American people. And you need leaders that are of a character that is unquestionable, and that they have an ability to lead other people and organizations. And you need them to want to do it for the right reasons. They have to be service oriented. So I would, take a lot of pride in fellows of the National Academy of Public Administration who are also Flemming Award winners. And I would take maybe three examples. Gene Dodaro, who's the Comptroller General of the United States, as Kathy mentioned previously, is one of those award winners of a Flemming Award, but also a fellow of the Academy, and has impeccable leadership and has had that for over 50 years of service. The late Paul Volcker is a Flemming Award winner, but also was a fellow of the Academy. And think about the contributions made to economic theory and management at some of the most critical times and of financial pressures. And then you have Dwight Ink, who is a consummate public administrator and worked across many different sectors and areas of work, and had an orientation about him that almost mirrored that of Arthur Flemming himself, in terms of wanting to really be of service in any way possible. And so I think, looking at the general time frame that we're in and the environment that we're in, public servants really need those three characteristics at least. And I think the Flemming Award Fleming Award winners represent that. And I think the commission that selects them looks for those type of characteristics as well. So it's a real testament to the winners that they're able to, persevere through any environment, that they're able to lead in ethical and really good ways, and that they're able to be service oriented and doing things for public trust and public good rather than any other motivator.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think, Kathy, would love to get your thoughts on one of the distinguishing elements of the Flemming Award is that it recognizes early and mid-career leaders as opposed to those who are at the tail end of their career. Talk to me a little bit about how that encourages a stronger culture of service and changes how government actually serves the citizens.
Thank you. That's a great point, because when Arthur Fleming said, why don't we have this award in 1948? It's because he thought there was a need for an award for people that were already demonstrating great promise to reward him for that, but to encourage him to stay in government. Because he had only been in government a few years, but he recognized there were some wonderful people there. And he said, we not only have to recruit the best and the brightest, but we need to encourage them to stay there. So when they started the award, they said, how about this is people that are less than 40, but that we want to reward them to stay in. Now, when that is the George Washington University, took over hosting and running the awards 25 years ago, we were based in DC and we couldn't have age discrimination. So we changed it slightly to say that this is for people that were within 15 years of entering government. And what's interesting is that sometimes you have winners who might be a researcher or an accountant who worked in the private sector first, then went to GAO or Justice Department or USDA and made wonderful contributions there. But they decided they wanted to work in the public interest. And so we basically, the new reality is that people switch across, whether it's agencies and sectors as well. Here at GW, we teach Master of Public Administration, Master of Public Policy, and we know that our students are likely to work in all three sectors during their lives. But the notion of retaining and attracting talent was integral to this award. He specifically didn't want it just to give it to somebody at the end of their career, but to motivate and keep people, wonderful leaders inside government.
Yeah, that goes back to James-Christian's point. So we've talked a little bit about the history of the award and its tremendous sort of over the last 75 plus years of where it's been. We talked a little bit about the impact on current public servants. Let's shift to talk about the future a little bit. James-Christian, as you look at government today, you talked a little bit about it. Where do you see the biggest, greatest needs for innovation and excellence? And that's a big question, but
that's a big question. Let me just say where I think the biggest needs are going to be. Let's recognize that our current government that we have, at least at the federal level, has an aging population, which is not a bad thing because with that comes a lot of wisdom. But we do want to make sure we replenish the ranks of our civil service. And so with really low numbers of public servants that are under the age of 30, I think what Kathy was mentioning before about the Arthur Fleming Awards being a great way to motivate and incentivize people to come in and accomplish things early in their career and to stay in government is great. But with that comes three things that I think we need to think about for the future. One of them is around being able to use technology and artificial intelligence, understanding how its ethical application will be used, understanding how to integrate it into better decision making, understanding where that data comes from and the quality of those data are and how it can be used is going to be really important going forward. I think making sure that public servants understand their role and that being a public servant requires a nonpartisan view towards that service is also going to be really important. And people coming in and receiving an Arthur Fleming Award, the beauty of it is it's not based on anything political. It is based on merit. It is based on the accomplishments. And I think that's going to be paving the pathway for future award winners, because that criteria, in my view, will not change. It will only become more important given the current context that we're in. And then a third area that I think is going to be really important kind of going forward is being open-minded and understanding how change management works and challenging norms and previous perceptions. Right now, we're having, probably for the first time in any real serious way, national debate about how government serves the people, what it should look like, what's the size of government. And this is a critical conversations. And the workforce of the future is going to need to be open-minded about what that looks like, what the role is, how it's going to function, which agencies and departments exist or not. All of those things are going to be really important. And I think we're going to need a workforce of the future that reflects that. And if the Arthur Fleming Awards really kind of highlight people that have been able to navigate those things already, I think it'll do that going forward and set a good marker for those who want to join public service in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kathy, as you think about opportunities that you are most excited about when you think about the next 10 to 20 years of federal service and public administration, offer 2 or 3 of those for the audience.
In very much in line with what James-Christian said, I think we're at a critical point. And as I tell the young students who are coming in very excited about public service, is that you have a real opportunity, because a lot of things have simply been broken, and you need to be innovative and very creative about how you can put together new structures, new systems, different ways of looking, for example, of how we engage in international development and foreign aid. Now's the time to, everything's on the table. You need to be I wish I had a better way to say this, but it's really thinking outside the box. There are no textbooks that are going to be able to prepare students, especially about, for example, as you mentioned, James-Christian, ethical issues related to AI. We don't have the answers. Teachers don't have the answers, but what we do know is that we need to help prepare and develop curious leaders who are going to continue to seek out ways to deal with unknowns. It's an exciting time, actually.
Yeah, no, a lot of things need to be figured out, but I think, again, the commitment to keeping the public and the service of the public front and center will unlock the right answers to a lot of those things. So let's talk a little bit about the upcoming podcast series. We're going to launch this series and speak to the winners of the Arthur Fleming Awards in sequence. James-Christian, talk about why it's so important to share these stories, not only within the federal workforce, but also with the broader public.
Yeah, I mean, I think the country needs to know that the American people, the way that we thrive, part of that is public servants, and it's how government serves them. We're coming up on our 250th anniversary, and yes, there are a lot of things that could have been better along the way, but we should give a lot of credit to a lot that had to happen and went very well for us to get to where we are. We're a resilient nation. We're the best nation in the world. And I think in order for our own people of this nation to understand that, they need to know more about how government is serving them and more about the accomplishments that our public servants are achieving. And I think the Arthur Fleming Awards is one way to do that. The challenge that I would have is if you go and you read about some of these accomplishments, one that stands out in my mind is you had an Arthur Fleming Award winner that was working on time and improving the precision of how we tell time. And that's already to me somewhat of science fiction, but this is real accomplishment and real work. And if you read the narratives of some of the previous award winners, I struggle to make it through those paragraphs and know all of the words that are being used and all of the concepts. It's very technical issues, very complex work. And the challenge would be to inspire future public servants to say, continue down that path of doing things that only you can do, only you can do in government. Continue to create value for those that you serve. And yes, let's share that with the world, and let's share that with those that we serve so that they can also recognize you for the accomplishments that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Kathy, I'll leave the last word to you. As podcast listeners are listening to the stories of the awardees and what they've done to contribute to public service, what should they be especially attuned to? What should they listen for as they move forward?
Why these wonderful public servants do what they do. What motivates them? What gives them joy in terms of doing these wonderful things in the public interest? I want them to inspire young people that may be in the private sector and thinking about, no, that sounds like something that I would enjoy being part of, to inspire people by their personal stories and what their own motivations are.
Excellent. Yeah, we certainly hope that the inspiration and the incredible accomplishments of these individuals shines through with the podcast and the series that's upcoming. We'll leave it at that. Many thanks to Dr. Kathryn Newcomer and James-Christian Blockwood for their candor, expertise, and vision today. And many thanks to the teams behind the Flemming Awards and the National Academy of Public Administration for continuing to invest in our public sector leaders. Thank you for joining us on Beyond Expectations. This podcast series is sponsored by REI Systems. At REI, we are reimagining government together. Until next time, keep believing in the power of innovation and public service.